everybody. So, Karyn and I were actually just kind of BSing on the floor right now, thinking of stuff to talk about.
I'm on the floor, she's on the sofa.
Yeah, I'm on the sofa, she's on the floor.
Futon.
And we were kind of thinking about old jobs that we had, things that lasted a while, things that didn't last as long, and then we realized that back in 2010, both of us worked for the United States Census Bureau. And I was remembering this very distinctly because I had some real weird stuff happen during this session. Now, I need to paint the picture. So this is 2010. I am still technically in grad school. This is the summer after my second year of grad school. And I am living part-time in North Jersey. I was living with with a boyfriend at the time. That's another video that I'm not going to get into. But
That's a video she's never going to make.
It's a video but I was living up north and commuting back and forth to work on my master's thesis and spend time, I wasn't paying rent living up north. I was just hanging out there and then coming home when I could. So I needed a job, and I needed a job really badly. I'd worked previously for my county government, really enjoyed it.
Same.
But they had a series of budget cuts and could no longer maintain part-time temporary help, i.e. us. But luckily, I don't even remember how I found out that this was happening. I think I saw either something online about it, or what's more likely is my dad told me, or something of that nature, and is like, oh, sign up to be a census enumerator. So for those of you who aren't super familiar with the process of the U.S. Census, basically, you get something in the mail, and you fill out, you say, okay, this many people live in this house. We are this race, this ethnicity.
Yeah, there's lots of different questions they ask.
They do that to determine,
demographics
of the areas that people live.
I think they also use it to help map
population mapping and stuff like that. It shows
the data goes to
it's public. It's actually public knowledge. You can find it pretty much online. They record census data every 10 years.
And then they process that data over the next 10 years and release all sorts of information.
So it's incredibly useful data, but it's only useful if everybody responds. Now, in some countries, and actually in the United States, filling out the census is mandatory. You are required by law to do it. But not everybody does. People get busy, they forget about seeing the pamphlet, they don't mail it back in, they don't want to mail it back in because
they don't want
reason,
to.
They just don't want to. So that's step one. Step two, the census hires on a bunch of temporary workers called enumerators to basically go door to door and retrieve the information for people who did not submit their forms. And that's where we came in. So, I remember it was July. It was a high summer, a sticky, humid heat. I remember this just everywhere. So in order to be considered to work for the census, you actually need to take a test. And I don't remember anything about that test. Do you, Karyn?
Yeah, I had to go all the way to another county. Mm-hmm. To their, fire
academy?
Academy.
Oh,
to take this long written test.
Yeah.
It was
multiple choice, if I remember.
Incredibly easy to me.
Oh, yeah. No, I remember the questions being supremely easy. And I also remember, for mine, I went to a church in a nearby town that I had not been to in probably 20-something years because I had last gone there for a birthday party when I was a kid. They had a roller skating area, and we went roller skating.
Oh, it was like a gymnasium
with
a rubber floor.
It was weird. It was weird, but we took this test, and we passed this test, and all of a sudden, ta-da, we are hired by the United States Census Bureau to become enumerators. So then we had to sit through some training. And my training was in our county seat. They use a lot of public areas because it is so short term.
Like less than a week of training.
Yeah, it was less than a week. I remember they would give us like an hour for lunch, and I would walk around town because I'd made some acquaintances, and we would go over. I remember one time we went to there was a chicken place that I'd never been to before. It was really tasty. We went there. There was another place that I remember walking to, had really good soup, and I always wanted to have that soup again, but then the place closed down and I could never have that soup. So we got food there, and then next thing you know, congratulations, you're certified. Wait a little bit, and they're going to give you an assignment.
They're going to give you like a team leader that you have to report to.
And you meet up with this person, and you're going to have an assignment. You're going to have to go door to door to these houses and fill out all of the information. And if you have to try to access these houses like 2 or 3 times. And if they don't get back to you, then and only then you give like a did not respond, like a DNR.
And when you give a DNR is do not resuscitate.
I know, but they also use that abbreviation if I remember correctly.
When that happens, then the team leader has to start going.
When I first got my assignment, it was like one town south of me. So I was like, okay, this is cool. This is great. This is actually very convenient. So I showed up and I met up with my team leader for the first time. They give you a binder. And in the binder are pamphlets or flyers for every single house in a certain block and lot range that has not responded. So I'm in the town like immediately under ours. Like maybe a 5-minute drive, maybe. And I remember very distinctly, I had this super thick binder with tons of addresses in it in this one particular block. And I drive there, and I get there, and I realize it is a currently being constructed development. So these houses are not occupied. So that was real easy for me. I actually remember it was very nice. The first house in the area was like the demo home. And I remember very distinctly the woman who was basically manning it at the time. She's like, "Oh, have you ever been in one of these homes before?" And I'm like, "No." And she goes, "Would you like a tour?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So I remember they were great. They're like, "If you need to use the bathroom, come on over here, use this, it's fine. If you need water, anything." I remember, it's the Toll House Corporation that makes these houses.
And cookies?
And what they would do to kind of entice you to take a look at some of the other houses, they would bake cookies constantly. Toll House chocolate chip cookies. Or it was the Toll Brothers Toll House cookies. So
and
I
the
would
Toll
walk in,
Brothers are making houses,
yeah,
so they are the Toll houses.
Yeah. So I remember that, like, I would walk in, and the woman was just, like, so sweet. She's like, "Here, have some more cookies. You're so nice. Have a great day." And I would go, and I think maybe out of that entire 30-house block, maybe 2 of the houses were occupied. And I was able to get in touch with somebody there, no problem.
Because one of the big things that, especially the census enumerator type that I was running cleanup crew. Mm-hmm. We were there to determine whether these houses or addresses were occupied at all.
Or vacant.
And also whether they even existed.
Yes, a lot of times you would get a block and lot combination for an address that was not there anymore. Either the house had been demolished, or it was just a purchased parcel of land with no building on it.
Or the 2 parcels of, like, somebody bought out the lot next to them and combined
stuff like that.
them.
It was, you had to check to make sure that these were actually occupied areas.
I know that there was one house that Elyse and I both had on our lists that just simply did not exist.
It just wasn't there. Also, the pay was fantastic. I think I was making like $15 an hour.
It was $17
an hour. It was great.
Because we were federal employees at the time.
You
were
could
temporary,
not,
no benefits.
Yeah. You could not beat the price.
You could work up to 40 hours a week. Mm-hmm. They encouraged you to work as much as you could, but especially by the time that I got there, there just
wasn't enough stuff to do.
There weren't 40 hours worth of cases.
So that was my first assignment. I turned it into my team leader, and they were super happy. And then I get a phone call. "Elyse, we actually placed you wrong." "What?" "Yeah, you're supposed to report to this guy instead. You're being reassigned. Congratulations." And I was like, "What?" So the new area I had to report to was very different.
It was further away.
For starters, it was a good 20 minutes away. I was not very familiar with it. And one of the major issues that I would encounter is that a predominant portion of the neighborhoods that I was in were non-English speaking.
And that's why they didn't fill out
the census. And we had information for people who spoke Spanish, but I do not speak Spanish, and that made this much more difficult. So I am now reassigned. Keep in mind that this was 2010. I'm going through my areas, and some places I'm able to make contact with, some places I'm not. And one of the places that I was able to make contact with was a house right on a main street. It might have even been a state highway. Very, very populated area. And I knock on the door, and a gentleman answers the door who is not wearing a shirt. And I think to myself, oh boy, this is gonna be great. So,
was he wearing a pants?
He was wearing a pants, but
look, that's what matters.
He was topless.
It is, honestly,
it's a little disconcerting to
weird being around shirtless people.
It's a little disconcerting to talk to a gentleman who is... He reminded me very much, he was like a surfer dude. He had like long blonde hair and was like super tan. And also not wearing a shirt. So I guess he must have been like renting the house with a buddy of his and some other people. So I'm asking him the questions, and the other guy comes out, who is also not wearing a shirt. And I am just like, I'm trying to remember, I'm like 22 right now. I am a young single woman at this point. Well, basically. And I am in an area that I'm not familiar with. I didn't have a smartphone because those were not super common. And my cell phone service in this area was absolute trash. So I am basically there, and I am talking to these two shirtless men who insist on shaving while they are talking to me.
They gotta multitask.
About who is in this house, how long have they been living there, how old are they, and getting information like that. And then the one guy turns to me and goes, "Oh, hey, here's my MySpace page. Get in touch with me." Wink, wink. And I am just... Did somebody just try to hit on me while I am at work? Did this, like, leathery old topless guy literally just give me his MySpace page?
This
in
was
the year
2010.
of our Lord 2010?
This is 2010.
When MySpace had already been dead for, like, 3 years, practically? Yeah. So that was uncomfortable. There was another area, and again, the heat comes into play.
It was so hot it was hot every summer, but it was
so exceptionally
unbearable.
hot. And I would walk from house to house because I would have to walk. I would park somewhere and
somewhere
walk.
legal. You have to park somewhere legal.
You have to park in legal, and you just walk the blocks. And I remember stopping at one house, and a little boy answered the door. And his dad came up behind him and was, they were totally cool with filling out the census. They asked me to step in a little bit out of and I, because it was air conditioned in there, and they could see that I'm just dripping sweat because you are not allowed to wear shorts. You are not allowed to wear, I couldn't wear this shirt, no sleeveless shirts. You have to maintain a certain amount of professionalism, but if you're also melting because it's damn hot...
Did we have ID badges? Lanyard IDs?
Yes, we had lanyard IDs so that we could identify ourselves as census workers.
I believe we had to turn those in at the end because
we had to turn everything in.
Because they labeled us as federal employees.
Yeah, we had to turn in our badges, we had to turn in our bags. Any trace of being a enumerator had to be returned to the government, which... makes sense. They don't want people stealing that to impersonate somebody and using it for nefarious purposes. So I do remember this very kind family asked me, they're like, do you need to come inside? Are you okay? Do you need to get out of the heat? And I'm like, yes, please, can I? They gave me a glass of water. They gave me a glass of Kool-Aid. It was very sweet. The little boy was just adorable. And I remember that house, very nice. It was very distinct. That one sticks out in my mind because I remember It was in the hundreds that day, and I am just trudging along, melting. I have gone through all of the water that I was carrying with me already.
And Elyse was a big canteen user.
Yeah,
and still is at times.
Yeah, I had an Nalgene full of water that was gone by that point. I only ever had one guy slam the door in my face. He made some veiled political reference and slammed the door in my face, and I'm like, thanks. Not like this is something that happens every 10 years, regardless
of who the president
is. But I remember that after a while, the assignment became impractical for me to continue with based on where I was located, how far it was taking me to get there, and the time it was taking for these people to get back to me. So I do remember at some point my team leader was like, turn in your stuff. It's not practical for you to be doing this anymore. You've gotten through all of the stuff, all of the people that you were supposed to get to.
There comes a time where it's just like, you can't proceed anymore.
Yeah, you're
not getting anywhere.
It needs to be elevated at that point. So at that point, I turned in my badge, I turned in my my bag. I actually kind of missed that bag. It was pretty great. It was a nice messenger bag. It had like U.S. Census Bureau enumerator on the side, and I thought it was pretty cool. But so ended my career as a census enumerator just in time to start my final year of grad school. Would I do it again? Absolutely. I am a people person. I am an extrovert. I met so many interesting and cool people that I would be glad to do that again in a heartbeat if I happen to be out of work when the time comes around. So, thank you guys so much for hanging around and listening to my weird work stories. Question of the day, has anybody ever hit on you while you were at work, and did it really freak you out? Because it really freaked me out. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you'd like to see more weird storytime videos, I've got a whole bunch, and how about I link the one where I won my college's Guitar Hero tournament at the end of this one. My social media links are in the description below. If you'd like to see more videos, hit that little subscribe button, click the little bell. If you want to stay in the know, the bell's the way to go. Thank you guys so very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Later!